Hello, podcast listeners. It's Brandy Mays here with Together as One JB podcast, and we're here with Michaela and Alan. Would you guys introduce yourselves, please?
Hi, my name is Alan White, and I'm an assistant professor at the Christ College of Nursing and Health Sciences, and I also work for the University of Cincinnati in their Office of Educational Innovation and Community Partnerships.
And I'm Michaela Oldfield. I'm director of the Greater Cincinnati Regional Food Policy Council, which is an initiative of Green Umbrella.
Thank you, guys. So can you tell me, what is this Edible City and Food Atlas project?
Edible City is a project that is showcasing Cincinnati and our region's past, present, and future regarding the innovations and developments that have come from here as they relate to the broader food system.
And what inspired you to start this project?
That's a good question.
So there was a couple different inspirations for this project. One was Alan actually spent a couple years putting together a pretty comprehensive history of our entire food system in our region and the local food movement, and he asked me to edit it, and I was helping edit it and looked at it, and I was like, this is really boring, Alan. No one's ever going to read it. We need to create something that's sort of more of a picture book that people will actually really get engaged with. And the inspiration for that comment came from, there's two books that Alan and I actually both happen to own, totally independent of knowing each other. One is this book that's called Food and Atlas, that is all maps of different parts of our global and national food system. And then the other is called Hungry Planet, which is all these photographs of people with a year's worth of food. And both of them are much more compelling sort of representations of a lot of complicated information about our food system. And so I was like, we need to come up with a regional food shed atlas that tells the story of what our regional food system looks like in a way that is much more engaging for consumers.
And I would add that in addition to the timeline, I had been doing a series of community food maps. And so I didn't mean for these to work together, but this project is a culmination of both of those other projects. So the answer was absolutely, let's do this.
And what are the benefits of this project?
Well, for me, this is a chance to really celebrate some of the rich history that comes from our region. And I'm just going to dive into it a little bit. For our audience here, Cincinnati, if you look at the things that came from here and then you understand how they've impacted the rest of the world's food system, these are topics such as wine making and viticulture, grape growing, the beehive, the removable bee frame was kind of polished and put together up in Oxford, Ohio. So it wasn't developed there, but this was where Lorenzo Langstroth was able to make some of the final improvements upon it. He got a patent for it, and of course now beehives are trucked all over the world for pollination. Another big story is Porkopolis. So Cincinnati helped to invent the disassembly line, and out of that came major corporations such as Procter & Gamble. What else stands out to you in terms of our rich history?
I think the assembly line and the disassembly line is a really interesting story that sort of Cincinnati innovated how to really efficiently disassemble pigs because of the incredible quantity of pigs that were available in our region due to the sort of geography of what our landscape looked like and what was amenable agriculture for the region, as well as the cultural history of who had emigrated into the region, being a pretty strong German culture. And out of that came Procter & Gamble, and then one of the other products that came out of it is Crisco, and so I think that's an important part of the story is there was all of this excess fat that was on the market that needed to be processed into lard as well as soap and that kind of thing. And then over time, actually, Crisco replaced most of the lard, or all of the lard that was in the product with cottonseed oil, which was part of using an excess commodity that was on the market as a result of a sort of waste product of another industry, which was the cotton textile industry. And this is an important story for people to understand about our food system, is that there's a huge amount of products that are really about using excess, what are probably considered waste products until you figure out an innovation to use them. So actually the whiskey rebellion of the 1800s was farmers rebelling against taxation on whiskey, which was a product that was being used to preserve and store excess corn crops that were coming out of the sort of frontier agriculture areas. And then today we have things like ethanol fuel that is, again, a way to use excess product that is coming out of our incredible agricultural productivity. So to me, that's where some of the story becomes really fun to talk about, is understanding how Cincinnati was positioned to be this central place for a lot of innovations in our food system that are still rippling through to today's food system.
Mm-hmm. Another unique part of that story is the China-Poland pig breed was created here up in Warren County in Oxford, Ohio. There's actually two competing claims to who developed that breed, but that was the pig breed that allowed us to create as much pork and obviously fat and lard that came from that as well. So yeah, there's just the deeper you dig, the more you're amazed by it.
I think for me, one of the benefits of this project and why it's really important to work on is because our food system is phenomenally complex, and there's a huge number of different components affecting what kind of food we have available and what we eat as consumers. And so I really want this project to be something that helps people understand the complexity, but also see that there's opportunities for them to intervene and create meaningful change in the sort of trajectory that we're on with our food system. So, it can be anything from purchasing local to trying to shop more sustainably in terms of some of the products you buy, up to getting involved with the Food Policy Council or other regional food system efforts in order to create new systems that can sort of move us towards health and equity and sustainability.
Wow, this project sounds very complex and very interesting, and I feel like you guys must have had some enjoyable moments during this project. Can you share with me, each one of you, what is your most favorite?
Yeah, for me, it's the marriage of history and art and community engagement. So the ability, to talk about food is, it can on one hand be very easy, on the other hand it can be not that exciting. But when you throw in art, or you throw in activities, or you throw in some form of aspect of community engagement, you get the entire family involved. It really helps to bring it to life in ways that just having one of those things by themselves cannot.
I think for me, there's been a couple things that have been incredibly enjoyable. First, I'm a transplant to Cincinnati, so just learning and digging into a lot of the history that Alan knows because he grew up here has been really educational. It's been really fun to learn so many things that I didn't know about the city and our history. It's also been an incredible opportunity for building new partnerships and getting to know new people. So once we started putting the call out for maps and infographics, there turned out to be all kinds of information that people have put a huge amount of work into developing that they've never really gotten to get out to the world. And we're trying to bring that together and make it available to people. And so that's been something that I'm really excited about in terms of both learning for myself and also helping partners get the story out about what they've been doing.
Yeah, we've been really lucky. We did a public call, and we've had people produce maps, quite an eclectic collection. One person, Nate Kemp, he's an avid bicyclist, and he produced a map about the smells that he encounters on his bike trip. His daily bike commute from Cincinnati down into northern Kentucky through the Mill Creek. We've had the privilege of working with a student from the University of Cincinnati named Julia Glenn, who is a talented graphic information systems and also a graphic designer. And so we can come to her with a data set and say, hey, let's put this together in a way that really tells a story. So this book is about telling the story of our food shed. And so to see some of these things that we're able to visualize through the data in ways that have never been done before, it's been fun. It's kind of this is a dream project that's just enjoyable through and through.
Yeah, I think the arts piece is really, and the community engagement piece has really been a fun part that I didn't anticipate when I threw the idea out to Alan, because I'm much more of a, I tend to be a policy wonk and very sort of word oriented, and just threw the idea out. And it's been really fun to see everything become so visual.
Some of the other maps that are just the gems for me, we did a coffee map highlighting the local roasters and where they get their beans from. This map right behind us, the Perennial Vision, is tracking where the food forests have been planted, which are on public or private lands or in parks or your traditional farm orchard. It's the ability to work with people that we would have never worked with before that have specific knowledge, both in the past and also currently, which is where it's really unique to tie it into the policy piece, as Michaela mentioned. But we also get to dream. This book, the third section, is about the future. What do we want our future to look like? How do we visualize that? Where do we think we're headed? Referencing the things that Michaela mentioned of really how do we create a food system that is going to be fair for not just people, but also the planet.
Great. This sounds like such a great project. Like, it makes me very excited to hear about how you're collaborating with artists, and especially it's about the topic of food, which I love, and I love local food, and just visualizing the future of Cincinnati too, where you can just like take a walk and just pick an apple here and pick a peach there. It just sounds beautiful. But can you tell me what's next for this project? What's next for you guys?
So I'm going to let Alan talk about some of the events that we've started to brainstorm. For me, one of the things I'm hoping comes out of it is there's been a lot of maps we've created that do visualize and dream a future. Two of them that I'm most excited about are an eco-agritourism map that captures all of the current sort of food systems, education, sustainability projects, and different activities related to food and the environment that are happening between basically Finley Market and up to College Hill, which is sort of the most northern Cincinnati neighborhood, and could visualize that being actually a sort of ecotourism recreation trail, similar to trails that I've seen around like wine and bourbon and stuff in other parts of the country. So I think there's really this incredible opportunity that we could have this very cool tourism corridor within our city. Another thing that we collaborated with my colleague Wade Johnston, who runs Tri-State Trails, which is another initiative of Green Umbrella. We collaborated with him on looking at, they've got a project called Crown the Queen, which is about building out a connected trails network for active transportation within the city of Cincinnati. And Alan and Wade sat down and mapped out everywhere that we could put in foraging gardens and edible forests that people could then go biking and stop and pick fruit and food along the way. So in my dream world, those things will actually both eventually come to fruition. Another project that's emerging from this, or partnership that I'm excited about, is partnering with the Cincinnati Museum Center. They've really been stepping up as a leader in our region around being an anchor institution around educating people around the food system. They have a big project going on right now to create a STEM learning lab that is a showcase teaching kitchen that will use food to get kids excited about science, technology, engineering, and math. And so this is, the sort of a different side of the food system and a way you can use food to educate people and engage them. Alan does the mapping and the arts, and I'm very excited about this STEM piece. And so I am hoping that we'll be able to really sort of elevate some of that work that they're doing and partner with them. They've also been a big leader in purchasing local food for their cafeterias, and so we're just excited to build that partnership.
Yeah, the other piece that Michaela didn't mention is a food policy pamphlet. So one of the examples here is we produced a beer map, and it shows the renaissance or the explosion of our micro and craft brewing in the state, but it also traces the policy changes that happen. So literally, it is the state government saying, you know what, brewers, if you are under X amount of production, you can now serve this on site. Or it's passing laws that make access to financing easier. So it really shows you that we could change the food system by passing legislation that points it in a certain direction. And so we're hoping to choose a couple of the maps that speak specifically to the policy and kind of have a nice pamphlet that is really to be shared with our government leaders.
Yep. And also potential activists who might want to get involved in policy advocacy.
That's correct. In terms of community events, regional art exhibitions is one of the goals. So in the future, I foresee this show. We have produced an art show, about 70 to 80 different pieces that have been printed and have been created into scrolls now that sit on easels. So it's a pop-up show. We can take it anywhere, and I envision it going to all the major cities around us. I envision it being in libraries, in schools, in civic centers. One day it may even be in the halls of our local government. But this is, this is beauty and this is art and this is what gets people engaged. Regardless of where you're coming from or what your interest is. Eventually, we were lucky to be able to commission art pieces. So we have about 12 original artworks that were created for the project, and those will be auctioned off at one point. The main project deliverable that's coming out of this is actually a coffee table book. So we're currently working with Julie Kramer of Edible Ohio Valley. She's the designer for the quarterly magazine that comes out, and she's just doing a fantastic job putting together some of the spreads for the book.
That sounds so exciting. I'm just visualizing this bourbon trail right now, and that makes me very excited. And also just the fact that you guys, is not just the project, but also you're giving education on how to change a policy and the steps on to do that is just really amazing, and I think that's just wonderful. How the whole purpose of this podcast is for us to come together as a community. So how can the podcast listeners support you in this project?
Yeah. So if they want to learn more about the project and or get involved, they can go to greenumbrella.org, which has a link under the initiatives to the Edible City Project page. And there, consumers and citizens could get involved it would help to donate some money. Anyone who donates over $150 will receive a free copy of the book as a gift once we've actually published the book. They could also get involved by signing up for the Green News, which is Green Umbrella's newsletter, or the Greater Cincinnati Regional Food Policy Council's newsletter. And do you have other ideas?
No, visit the website. Please be generous and help us get this project to publishing.
And is there anything else you guys want to add?
Thank you, Green Umbrella and Michaela, and thank you, Brandy.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. You've done a huge amount of work on this that has been incredible.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you being on the show.
All right, take care, everybody.